Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming today. It's much appreciated. What we're doing today is a webinar on your office at home. Just some introductions first of all. On the webinar, you've got myself, Mark Edwards, the Operations Director, and then you've got Andrew Brookfield, the Business Systems Consultant for Seriun, who will show his video in a second.
Hello.
On the right-hand side of your screen, there's a Q&A where you can submit questions throughout this session. We're going to try and keep it light, to be honest, and hopefully give you some informative information about Teams, SharePoint and hosted phone systems. But the idea being that if you put questions into the chat, we'll try and answer them as we go along, or we'll answer them towards the end. And we'll also send you some questions afterwards and a link to the recording of this at the end of the session, if that's okay. What we're here for. First of all, we really want to talk about what's changed actually over the last over the last few weeks. To be honest, everything's gone up in the air, and IT has been really prevalent with it more than anything else. We found over what's occurred that the people who have certain technologies in place, they've found it easiest to get to work from home. So we want to try and show those. For the people who don't know us, we're a technology company. Focusing mainly on IT support, but we do telecoms and software as well, and we also do cybersecurity. We're a Microsoft Silver partner, so what we're showing you is driven by Microsoft, a lot of it, and also what we get as part of that partner status. And we're also a free CX partner as well, so that is a hosted phone system, which we're going to talk about towards the end. Just about Seriun and what we normally do. We do these workshops quite a lot in person, but we just want to make sure we continue to do these. Over the next few weeks, we're going to do some short ones where we do 15-minute slots back and forth, basically. And we're going to make sure that we do as many as possible to give you informative information about these things. Little bits on like how to use Outlook, how to add cybersecurity to working from home, how to use Teams, how to use SharePoint, etc. And in the long term, we'll be doing more workshops, either in person or via these if they're successful. We would actually like your suggestions, to be honest. It makes a big difference to what we deliver is actually right for you as customers and people we don't know yet, if that makes sense. And then very lastly, the customers. We have quite a lot of customers who are on this webinar at the moment. You've been speaking to our staff remotely. We've all been working from home now for 2.5 weeks, and hopefully you've not Yeah, nearly 3. Yeah. Hopefully you've not seen a change in service of what we've delivered. But if you follow the link on there, and we'll send this slide deck out afterwards as well, you'll get to see our faces and who we actually are and what we do within the business. So the agenda today. What we want to talk about is working from home and making that easier and communicating better across the board. What we're going to do is talk about Microsoft Teams. Andrew's going to give a quick 10-15 minute demo of it, but also show you some ideas, some tips and tricks that maybe you've not used before, and we'll go into more of those at future detail. We're going to show you about SharePoint. SharePoint is also based on the Microsoft 365 stack of products, and a lot of people who are using that have just fallen into working from home quite easily. And then we're going to talk about 3CX communications. These are hosted phone systems, and why that's helped people working from home as well when they don't have to go back into their office to answer the phone, to be honest. And then very lastly, we'll just cover off some bits and bobs of things that fall out of the remit of that. So if you fall into people who've got Sage, Nav and ERP solutions as well, and how we can help with those in terms of working from home. I must stress this is not a sales webinar at all. We want to just try and give value to it. Most of the things we're going to show you today you can do yourself in terms of setup and having a look at, but do feel free to contact us afterwards if you struggle at all. So where we're going to start. We're going to start with Microsoft Teams. It's basically a product that's been around for a long time now, in the world of IT anyway, 2016. I describe it as WhatsApp for business. Andy describes it a bit differently, to be honest, and he will talk to you about it and show you how it works. But the easiest thing, the way we look at it, is a collaboration tool. It's a way of getting out of Outlook actually, which again hopefully will show you. It's been around since 2016. So it's a very mature application. It started off as basically something you could just talk one-to-one to each other as quick text functionality, and then it's just increased and increased and increased. Its competitors in the market are people like Zoom, to be honest, and Cisco WebEx. Ironically, WhatsApp for Business is a competitor for it. But why we promote it and why we think it's a good thing is if you are already a 365 customer, then you basically get a huge amount of functionality built into the product, and integration into your other solutions like Word, Excel, and Outlook, and that's where it can really pay dividends. For people who are rightly worried about the data sensitivity about these products, the data that is held in the same data center as Office 365, which could be the UK if you've signed up in the last 3 years, 3 or 4 years now, sorry. And if it's before that, it'll be Dublin by default in the EU. So it's all GDPR compliant. Which still stands even though we're exiting, and your data is held encrypted. The data between your device and the data center is encrypted, but Microsoft treat your data seriously, and it's yours forever basically in their data center. It's replacing Skype for Business if anybody uses that. That's end of life in July 2021. And Skype for Business is a really good tool as well for quick conference calls and phone calls and intercompany discussions. But Teams has replaced all the functionality within Skype for Business, and gives you more. And that will go into life in July 2021. And to be honest, we would recommend you move to Teams faster. And it's also part of the Office 365 apps family. That is very much a load of products that are in there that are Planner, Sway, Forms, Restore, a whole world more. If anyone's used to using the 365 portal, which Andy will briefly touch on in a second, there's an icon at the top left-hand side, little 9 dots in a square. And when you click that, you get all these other apps in there. We'll be doing little sessions on those as they go along. So again, it's worth just having a quick look at those because some of them are really useful and you already pay for them potentially. So what is Teams? How do you get Teams? It's basically part of most Office 365 packages. If you've already got a business premium or a business essentials package, which 99% of our customers, for example, do, or an enterprise level one, the E range, E1 or E3 range, it's included in those monthly costs. The only one it really isn't included on that's used is what's called an Exchange P1, which is email only. But for 80 pence extra a month, you can get Teams and some other functions. So we do recommend that. But fundamentally, most of you will have it. It's installed as part of Office. So on your PCs, you'll see it installed as Microsoft Teams. It'll prompt you to log into it when you start, and all you have to do for login purposes is it's your email address and the password that you use for your Outlook or your email on your phone or any other device as well. So it's really easy to log into. There's applications for the web, desktop, mobile and tablets, and I can't stress how important these are actually. The app for your phone is absolutely brilliant, and it works on Android and iPhone devices, and it will basically look like you're in the office. So I know when I've been working from home and looking after my kids, which I'll apologise now if you hear some screaming or any doors knocking around, but you can be sat having your lunch downstairs and still using Teams on your mobile phone, like you're responding to customers and to colleagues, like you're in front of your desktop as well. It's an online product, so you need to be aware that it doesn't work without an internet connection. So you need to have some form of connectivity. Now, luckily or not luckily, we've all had to go and work from home in different locations over the last few weeks. So that's proved that your internet is stable or not, and therefore you know it's there in situ. So it's usually not an issue these days. And very lastly, not related to this webinar, but in the last week, Microsoft have just announced that they're renaming their products. So what they're basically doing is anyone who's got a Business Essentials, Premium, etc., they will be renamed as these ones. So they'll be renamed as Business Basic, Standard, or Premium. Microsoft are particularly good at confusing you with the naming structure. So Office 365 is now going to become Microsoft 365. They're basically dropping the word Office from it. The people who are customers on this webinar, you'll see that change on our invoices to you. And you'll see it change as you log into it. Fundamentally, there's no drop in the products that you're getting at all. It's just a renaming exercise and a branding exercise. So just be aware of that in the future. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Andy, who's going to give you a show of how Teams works and some quick tips and tricks of how to use it effectively from home.
Right. Thanks, Mark. Okay, so let me just switch over onto my screen, so everyone should be seeing that now. So, hi everyone, I'm Andrew Brookfield. I'm one of the business application consultants over at Seriun, and I'll just give you a quick walk through Teams and some of the functionality and features that's available in there. So, first of all, what is Teams? Well, Teams is a collaboration platform. It's a lot more than WhatsApp for Business. There is actually a product within the Microsoft suite that really is more like WhatsApp for Business, which is called, what's it called? Kaizella, I think it's referred to as, which has very similar features to WhatsApp for Business if you wanted to have a look at that. So, looking through on here, Teams, how's it made up? Well, the first point on there is you have Teams. So, as an example on here, we have retail, sales and marketing, and this Marquee project team. And this is how you group your people together. And the idea is that you have different groups of individuals that would be on here. So these would generally be whatever your departments would be within your business. Something that I like to point out as well is this interface is available across multiple devices. Like Mark said, there's a mobile client that's very, very rich. There's also as well clients for this on the web, so pretty much anything with a web browser can access Microsoft Teams, and it looks very, very similar to the desktop app, which I'll just load up quickly on here. And you'll see that pretty much this is a desktop version, and when it loads, there you go, and that's the web version of it as well, so pretty much like for like. The features are almost exactly the same, slight differences in the way that it's laid out, but it has everything on there. It is replacing Skype for Business. Now, off the back of that, Microsoft a while back actually did release what they referred to as, what was the name for it now? But basically any feature that Skype for Business has, feature parity is how they referred to it. So any feature that is in Skype for Business is going to come to Teams at some point if it's not there already. Okay, so with these teams and how they're all set up, what happens is behind the scenes, each one of these teams creates an Office 365 group and a SharePoint Teams site. So anything that's stored in here is stored in your 365 tenant, and these files are stored as part of your SharePoint 365. Now I'll come back to that in a moment, but we'll just go through the use of the channels and things like that first. So a channel, think of channels as types of conversation. So in this case, you might have general channel, so this is chat about general things, and then you've got one about a specific product sales bracket for some reason, and in the case of the sales and marketing channel, we've got general chat and a chat specifically related to monthly reports. I like to think of this sort of teams and channel structure a bit like the old school forums, where you would have a different forum, and a different forum would be a channel where you'd have your general chat, and then you would have ones about specific areas of interest. Okay, so within your channel, what you can do is you can start a new conversation, and we could say, for example, in the sales and marketing channel, we might be wanting to say, how's everyone's pipeline? If I can type. And you can see it does have spell check built into it. And it's a full, rich text editing experience. Very similar to what you see these days with other messaging type of applications, where you do have modern tools available to you. So you can add smiley faces, I like a little penguin, and you can add GIFs to your messages. Put a little puppy on there, non-offensive. Okay, So you can add GIFs and various other bits and pieces in here as well. You can also attach files to your messages. So if you, for example, wanted to share a price list that you've got from your supplier recently, you can attach a file from your desktop. And when that is sent up, that is automatically uploaded into the SharePoint files section so that people can review it at a later date. Okay. Now, one of the other things that you can do in the channels is if you want to try and get someone's attention, then you can at a person. So let's just go back to that sales and marketing channel. And I can put a message on here and ask for an individual. And what that will do is that will notify them that there is a message waiting specifically for them. There are also other ways of setting a message to be more urgent. So you can flag your message as important. Okay. And just need to get to the buttons. So you can flag a message as important, or you can set a message to be an announcement. So we could say, for example, new. Helps if you can type. Okay, and the idea behind these, in my opinion with it, is that you can start to use Teams to reduce the amount of clutter that you get in your email mailbox. So if you start having a all company team, for example, and rather than sending an email to everybody within your business, you could create an announcement in the all company channel that you can send out to everybody in your business so that everyone is aware of that bit of information that needs to be shared, but they no longer have an email that they then have to do something with. I like to use the phrase signal to noise, and you're trying to reduce that noise that is in people's mailbox, and you're reducing the amount of unnecessary clicks that people have to do, really. So everybody in your business, if you're sending out an all staff email, has to then do something with that email. They've got to read it, then they've got to archive it or delete it or whatever. Using Teams, then that's just there. It just scrolls past in their feed and then it just disappears and they don't have to do anything. They've read it and it's gone. Talking about knowing if there's something that you need to read, well, straight away you can see on here that there's a slight difference between the titles of these. So you can see in here that we've got some of them that are bold, which is telling me that there is something that I've not read in there yet. And there are some on here which have an exclamation point on there as well, which is saying that there is an important message that's waiting for me. And also as well, you have the activity feed if someone actually messages or mentions you specifically with them @ symbols. And there are various levels of notifications that you can set up as well on that. Now, under your head on settings, you can go to notifications, and it is here where on a per individual basis, you can set what them notifications look like for different things. So if you do get an @ then you have a choice to either show it in the banner, which you'd normally see down here in the bottom right as a little, I think it's usually referred to as a charm that pops up. And you have an option as well to say an email as well. If you do actually respond to that quickly within Teams, it doesn't send you the email. And personally, I prefer to set these to just banner because, again, my idea of using Teams is you open it up in the morning when you get in. It's set by default to do that even, and you start to do as much of your communication as possible using Teams rather than your Outlook. So again, reduce that signal to noise, get as few emails into your mailbox as possible. Okay, 2 seconds. So that was it. So when you've got these chats, so you got that. Okay, also as well, what you can do is if there's a specific message that you need to be able to review at a later date, and this is just one of them little helpful tips that you can see, you can save a specific message for reviewing at a later date. That's done under these ellipses here, where you can save. And just unsaved it. You can also respond as well while I've got this open to a specific message, just to say, I like that, or smiley face. Now, once you've saved a message, you can view what you've got saved again by clicking on your head and then going to saved. and that shows the messages that I've previously saved. Okay, there's also as well, and this is something that's really important now for a lot of people, there is a sort of presence status in Teams to say that you're actually there and available to do some work. Built into this, you have this presence, and at the moment, Megan, who I am today, is available to speak to, or I could be busy, or do not disturb, I'll be right back. So you can see if someone's available to speak to or to do something. This is actually integrated into your Outlook Office 365 as well. So if you have a meeting and the status of that is that you are busy in that meeting, then it will automatically set you to busy. And if you set do not disturb, it will prevent any notifications showing up on your banner unless they are set to urgent. Okay, so I think I've gone mostly through what's available in the channels. So sometimes you don't necessarily want to put a public message out there for everybody in your team, and you just want to speak to a specific individual. And this is more about the sort of Skype replacement features that are available on there. And that's what you would use this chat element for. So once you have the chat opened up, you can search for a specific individual that you want to message. And this is generally people within your organization. I will add this here. You can start a chat with anybody outside of your business as well, as long as they're using Teams or Skype for Business. There are some settings to make it so that you can allow to have external conversations, and that has to be set on both sides, your side and the person who you're trying to have a chat with, on their sort of tenant settings behind the scenes. So what I've got here is I've started a chat with Lee, and apparently I've already started a message and started as important. Scratch that. And I can say, hi Lee. And this is a sort of text messaging bit. And this is, like Mark said, very similar to WhatsApp kind of thing, but we do have all of the rich text features that are available to us. We can set a message as important. We can add GIFs. We can add a teddy bear. So, okay, that's a bit strange. Let's not do that one. Okay, and you can do various other bits and pieces as well, and you can as well attach files if you wanted to send a file to a specific individual. So I can send a copy of that quote to Lee, and it's worth noting as well that when there you go, it's uploading bigger than I thought. Okay, and once that file's on there, you can have a look back at the files that have been shared within this chat with this individual. It is worth pointing out at this point that the way that the files are stored are slightly different between chats and channels. In here, the files are still stored in the sort of SharePoint structure, but they're not at a place that you can actually get to as easily. It's not something that's published for everybody, it's just between the members of this chat. Something else on the chat side of things is you can have multiple people in a chat. So if I click here, I can invite an additional person. So in this case, I'll invite Alan, who's our IT guy, in this made-up company to this chat. And what happens there is we have a chat now with a group. So we used this when we were setting up this webinar. So there was myself, Mark, and our marketing person who were going through this, Laura, who's probably watching this at the moment. So hi, Laura. And we were having a conversation about how we would go through setting all of this up, making sure that we had the presentation, and that way, excuse me, and that way we could all converse about it all as well. Now, there are options as well in these chats for a video call. So you can make a live video call, which would call up all the people in this chat. Can't really do that at the moment because I'm on a virtual desktop that doesn't have a web camera on there, but you can. And you can also do a voice call as well, which will again call all of the people that are in this chat to allow you to talk to them. So you've got all of that to you. Okay, so as well with these kind of chat kind of things, that's okay if you want in a sort of ad hoc sort of chat. But a lot of the times these kind of things are organized in advance. And that's when the meetings kind of things comes into play. So on the left hand side here, you've got a calendar in Teams, and this here is looking at your Office 365 calendar. So any appointments that you've got in Outlook will show in here. And if you want to create a meeting, then you can do so directly within Teams, and we'll call this demo. And I can add attendees to this. So other people that might want to be invited to this meeting. Again, in regards to the external contacts kind of things, you can invite external contacts to a meeting, and they can join that meeting, whether they have Teams or not, actually. If they do not have Teams, they will just get an email with a link in it that they can click, and it'll allow them to run a one-time run application to join that meeting. If they do have Teams, they can join that meeting from their Teams client, and they'll have the full rich environment of Teams and be able to do things like sharing the desktop, which I'll show you in a moment. Okay. Yeah, so once you've got the meeting set up, actually, before I go into that meeting as well, so that's one way of creating a meeting. You can create the meeting from within Teams. Most people don't actually do that though. Teams has got a bit of integration into Outlook as well. So if you wanted to create a meeting in a environment that's a bit more familiar to you, you have, once Teams has been installed, you should get this new Teams meeting button appear. Now, what you can do is you can either click that from your calendar view, and what it does is it adds this section here to allow people to join. And again, we can create a meeting as we would do normally in Outlook. And this would invite any participants that we wanted to. And it works very similar to how you normally see meetings in Outlook, and they get a meeting invite to accept. There is something slightly different on mine here, which is a small extra charge, which is this bit here with a telephone number available on it. I think is it about £3, Mark, off the top of my head?
It's £3.60 per month, but that's per named user. So we've got, so we recommend that you only put that on people who do web conferences with external people you know don't have Teams, but it is billed by the day, so you can just turn it off and on as you see fit.
Well, yeah. Now, a little caveat on that: it does take a couple of days for that number to be put on to someone. You can't just buy one and then switch it to whoever is using it that day.
Yeah, correct.
Putting it.
We found the most successful use for this is a sales team, for example, who do external meetings all the time. They just put that on the 6 or 7 people in their sales team, leave that on, and then move it around when the person leaves the business, for example.
Yeah, whoever's performing that role. Now, what that allows you to do is, if you do have people who have a computer that doesn't have a headset or speakers and a microphone set up very well, and they want to join the meeting and still be able to get the audio, then they can dial in with that number and this conference code, and that will allow them to get the audio on the meeting, even if their device doesn't have speakers set up on it, which is still the case for some laptops out there and desktop PCs. Not everybody has headsets in their office, so can be handy. Okay, so going on from there. Right, so in the meeting, once you've got a meeting set up, what can you do in a meeting? Well, a lot of the stuff that you can do in a meeting is the same kind of stuff that you can do in a chat, and you have the options to just join up on here. If I had a microphone, I could share my voice. Again, this is a remote desktop because obviously I can't be demoing it using my camera as I'm doing that now with this live event, which is also through Teams for anyone who didn't notice that one. And what you can do is you can share your camera. How that works, if there are multiple people in the meeting, it currently just shows the 4 people who have last spoken. And that is due to change, actually. I don't know if any of you guys out there have tried Zoom, and it has quite a good feature, really, where everybody is available at the same time and you can see everyone's camera regardless. Teams is working on that, or are working on that. Microsoft are working on that for Teams, to allow more people to be visible at the same time. So expect that in a upcoming release, really. They do update it quite a lot, and they're adding features all the time. Okay, so once you've got the team set up, you can share your camera, you can share your audio, but you can also share various other things. So you can share your desktop, similar to what I'm doing right now, where you're seeing a window on my computer, and you can also share files as well across the meeting. That's done under the conversation, where you can attach a file to the meeting, and you can have a text chat in the meeting as well as another way that some people who've just got speakers might be able to converse with the meeting that's ongoing. Okay, what else do we have? Mark likes me to mention as well about the blurring the background on there. That can be quite a helpful feature these days. So unfortunately, we can't show it right now. But if I click that button and I actually had a webcam on here that could see me, what would happen is the area around me would be blurred out. So a lot of people working at home at the moment might have just a pile of clothes behind them or something and working from their bedroom at the minute. And what that does is it just blurs that background, lets your face still be available to be seen, and that just adds a little bit of professionalism to the environment when you're working from home. Another thing that's available to you is recording. So you can record your meetings once you start them, and that records the meeting and puts it into another one of the 365 products, which is called Microsoft Stream. And that's sort of like YouTube for business, if you want to call it that. And that's a full sharing website where you can upload videos, and there's a bit more permissions and everything that you can set behind the scenes. So you can set that recording, upload it to Stream, and then you can choose to share that with whoever you want. And that's stored again in the 365 cloud environment, and you're not having to pass around huge video files between various individuals as well. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to show you on there, I think, unless there was anything I missed there, Mark. I think we're good.
No, I think it's we've had a question come through about, is this as efficient as Zoom for meetings? To be honest, we found it to be, because you just create the link within your Outlook, send them a link from it, and there's no other work to do at all. About 15 minutes before a meeting, up to the actual minute of the meeting, you'll get a pop-up at the bottom bottom right-hand side of your screen saying, "Here, it's time for your meeting. Join now." And it automatically joins and logs in using the Teams that's installed on your PC already. So there's no admin overhead. There's no URLs to send people or links to send people. You just join the meeting and off you go. If people don't have the dial-in function through Teams, they can use that phone number. And it should be pointed out, you can join meetings through the app on your phone, on your iPad, tablet, just the same as Zoom, to be honest. And then the additional functionality that you get in terms of recording, meeting notes, files that you can share within there, usually add up. The two features that we are aware of that Zoom is better, to be honest, is the change in your background to advertise your services, for example. But the blur the background takes away your pictures of your kids, for example, through Teams, and the showing everybody in one pane. But what happens with Teams is you see the 4 people speaking, and at the bottom of the screen you see small icons of like the 10-20 people who's logged into it as well. So I would heavily suggest you give it a try, especially internal meetings and meetings with customers you deal with all the time. Zoom is very good at what it does, and its place in the market definitely fits that to 100-200 people process. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, just something else to add, because I know that Zoom's a bit of a hot topic at the moment, and it is sort of a competing product to Teams. Bear in mind as well, something that Mark didn't mention on there, most of you guys are already getting Teams, the licensing kind of things behind it for free as part of your 365. If you've got Office that's installed under a subscription license, you've got Teams. Really, for Zoom, you should really be paying for an additional license if you're using it professionally. There's some caveats in there that they say if you're using it for free, that they might just drop your meeting off for no reason whatsoever. And also as well, something, if you have a look, I have to admit, I don't know Zoom really well, but there are some bits of information out there regards to the encryption in the meetings on Zoom as well. It can do encrypted meetings, but it does require quite a bit of setup and a paid subscription, I believe, to encrypt your meetings. Whereas Teams, the meetings and the video calls between it all is encrypted end to end.
We just had a couple more questions, which I think are worth answering now. One of them is, can you have admins to access private chats for certain specific things within a business that are sensitive? Absolutely. As Andy showed, you can make a chat with multiple people. Andy, can you just nip back to that quickly?
Yep.
And what you do is you create a new chat for Joe Blogs and somebody else. And then you can rename that chat as Andy's showing you now, and that can be a specific chat just for them 2 or 3 people, specifically for that reason. And then once you finish with it, you can just get rid of the chat, basically.
So again, I'll add Alex, I'll add Alan. We'll just have a few people in here. So you can create a chat that's sort of saved of a group of people. Think of it like your WhatsApp group chat kind of thing. And once you've done that, there's a button somewhere. Where does it live?
You need to add some text, Andy.
Oh yeah, okay, thanks. Once you've got the message in there, then what you can do is a little pencil there. You can then name that, and we could call that admins. Now, I'm not sure if that's answering the question, because another way of taking that about can you have admins having access to chats, all of the chat information that's stored on there. Now so in Skype for Business, any of the messages that you used to send actually were stored in people's 365 mailboxes, and you could, as an admin, go into the 365 mailbox and have a look at communications. Teams doesn't do it that way. Teams doesn't put all of your chat messages into the 365 mailbox so that they can just be viewed in Outlook, but all of that information is stored and is accessible by an admin person. It's quite a technical process to get the contents of their messages out. If you did want, for example, to have a look for, God forbid, some form of disciplinary procedure or something, for example, if someone said something to someone that they took offense to, you can get to that message history using PowerShell scripting and technical wizardry, which if you need that, console wasn't working, have a look at that for you.
And hopefully that answers your question. The other question we have on this is people have had difficulty using Teams in a remote hosted server. That depends on a few factors, to be honest. We use it on a remote server as well, and it works. It does traditionally work completely fine. It depends what you're trying to do. Video sometimes can be a challenge through remote servers in general, so watching YouTube or CAD work. So we would recommend Teams just being put on the local machine outside of the remote server to run any video-based meetings. Any text-based information like documents or things like that should work absolutely fine. And I'll message you through the chat in 2 seconds to get your name and details, and we'll follow up after this for you. Yeah,
it can be a bit tricky with if I presume that's like a terminal server that you're remoting onto, or is it RDS these days? It's a bit tricky to pass through a camera from a local device through to a terminal server, and in most cases it doesn't work that well. So you normally have a local device, and even if you've got a mobile, you can use it on your mobile and the camera would work generally quite fine on there. So that's an option on that side of things, I presume. Okay. So any more questions? Or
no, can we move on to SharePoint now?
Well, what I was just going to do quickly is just show some more of the features from the channels and about the file sharing bits on there. I did pop into here very quickly, but any of the files that you share in here automatically get uploaded. But we use this quite a lot internally as well, where we have this as a sort of document repository. Like I said, this is a SharePoint site behind the scenes, which we will go into later, and you can upload files onto there. I think I've got an example here with some better files. There you go. And you can upload a number of files into there. So if you did have things like price lists that you wanted to upload for people to share, then you can just upload a file into the team documents and have all of that stored. Now, this can be a bit of a replacement for some of the sort of network drives, but we'll go into this a bit more when we go on to the SharePoint side of things in a moment. I think that's it that I was going to show on there. Yeah, so if I can ask Mark to switch camera back to himself, and I think we can move on from there.
Yeah, there's so much we can show you about Teams, to be honest. And we really want to. We're doing further sessions on it, and hopefully you'll get more from those as well. We could spend all day on it, to be honest. It's a a really quick solution to set up and get going. So we say to people, please go and have a try, go and have a look and have a play, and then just let us know if you struggle at all. There was a question which I'll come to at the end actually about getting people to buy into it, which we'll touch on at the very end of this as well. So what we wanted to talk about next was SharePoint. SharePoint again is part of the Office 365 stack of products. It's been around for a long time as well. What Microsoft are very good at doing is maturing their products so they're usable at every level. And also Microsoft took a standpoint a few years ago where they decided not to fight with people like Apple and other vendors in the market and allow their products to work on anything basically across the board. And SharePoint really does epitomise that. Fundamentally, it's like an old school intranet. So back in the day, there was a lot of setup of internal intranets for posts and notifications and a few documents like health and safety documents and things like that. SharePoint took it even further by allowing you to not basically, but allowing you to move the majority of your documents from your server to the cloud as part of Office 365. And again, one of the things which is really strong in this is that it is part of your Office 365 subscriptions. Again, if you have Microsoft Teams, you automatically have SharePoint. The product is built into all the subscriptions apart from the cheap one we talked about before, the P1 version. And what it fundamentally is a web browser to access information across the business. Now, it works really tightly with Teams, as Andy showed. There's integration in there, so you can have some things in SharePoint and some things in Teams, and that's not to confuse the situation, but it's about using best-of-breed technology. It also integrates really tightly with Outlook as well, and sharing documents, which Andy's going to show you in a second. And fundamentally, it does allow you potentially to get rid of your map drive. So if you've got a P drive, a Z drive, or an S drive in your Windows Explorer on your PC that you need a VPN to access from home or a remote server, SharePoint allows documents to be accessed from in the browser. And what we mean by documents is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those kind of things. What we're not talking about here is Sage 50, AutoCAD, or any kind of ERP solution. That lives in a different kind of solution, but SharePoint can whittle out another reason, to be honest, not to have your server. And that's the first question. Does it actually replace your server? In the majority of cases, it can do. If your server is only there to run email and do Word and Excel files, there's not really a reason for a server these days in technology terms. They can all live within your 365 subscription. If your server does other things, such as Sage 50 or any kind of AutoCAD or on-premise enterprise solution, then there is a requirement, but that could live in the cloud as well. But what you basically do through SharePoint is access your documents through the browser and actually access them through any kind of device, iPads, Androids, Windows, Macs, and get to them. You can edit them in the browser using Word and Excel, so not having Word and Excel installed on your device anymore, and we're going to show you that. You can have multiple people in documents, and it works brilliantly, to be honest. And you can share documents in and outside of your organization really well, and actually, really allow people to access them files which you've had to email in the past very securely as well. And it does integrate really well with Word and Excel on the PC. I'm sat here at home looking out the window now, and I've got PowerPoint open where this PowerPoint file is in SharePoint, but we edit it in the full rich PowerPoint browser. So what we're going to do very quickly, because we are just conscious of time as well, is give you an idea of what SharePoint is and how it works. So I'll just pass back to Andy, if that's okay.
Right, 1 second. Let me just get my screen back up. Something that I did spot in the questions that's popped up as well that I just want to address really quickly. Now, I did say about messaging external contacts and how you can do that through a chat as long as they've got Skype for Business or Teams and that setting set to allow external contacts. There is actually another method as well of having external people in the Teams environment. There's 2 different external types of users that you can have. You can either have people that are in their own Teams environment, but you also have what are referred to as guests. So within a team, there is an option when inviting a member, and this is dependent upon the settings that are set in the Teams Admin Center behind the scenes, where you can add a guest user. Now, it's not working because it's not configured on this, but you can invite a external contact to be a member of the team. If they've got Teams already in the first place, they will be able to be a member of that team. So if you've got, say, for example, contractors that you're working on a project with who are outside of your organization, adding a guest to a team is a good way of sharing information with them external collaboration people. There are some licensing issues on there. You can have, I think it's like 20 guests per licensed user, but I wouldn't really recommend that for external contacts such as customers and having like a huge customer guest access. If you're wanting to communicate with your customers, then you're better really to just use the chat function and message them directly. That being said, I'm going to move on now to the SharePoint demo side of it. I think that clears up a little bit about the difference between guests and externals. If you any more questions, please pop them in. So SharePoint. Now, like we mentioned, in Teams, once you create a team, it automatically creates a SharePoint team site. And what I'm going to do is just go through some of the document storage side of things that happen within SharePoint and how that looks. So this is the sales and marketing team, and in SharePoint, you can see all of the documents that have been uploaded to the sales and marketing team. And this is more 365 than SharePoint, what I'm showing you here. And what you can do is with these documents, you can directly edit them in your browser. Now that's just taking a second to load up, usually a bit quicker than that. I guess it's a really high resolution image. Okay, and this is a full editing suite as well. So I can edit the document and make changes to this directly in the browser without even opening Word on my machine. These days, this can be quite a useful feature as well if people are working from home and they're using their personal devices that might not necessarily have Word installed. And if it is installed, it might not be logged onto your network. So doing this through the web, as long as they're signed into the Office 365 portal, office.com. I like to go to portal.office.com to get to the logon, and they can access any documents that are stored on your SharePoint library from any device as well. Now, again, this also works on mobile, it works on Mac, it works on Linux, it works on Windows. Best on Windows, really. Okay, so you can edit documents directly in here. Something else I like to point out as well, you may or may not have noticed while I was amending this, it says saved up there. And we don't even have a save button on here anywhere. And that's because what it's doing is it's automatically saving your changes to your document as you amend it. So it's live, all your changes are in there straight away. Another feature that's in there, as well as automatic saving of documents, is the ability for multiple people to edit the same document at the same time. Now, this is where we can show you that. So in monthly reports, for example, we've got a UK sales Excel spreadsheet. And I can click on that spreadsheet and I can start adding my sales stats to this. So this is smart home. So I'm going to say it's a LED smart bulb. And it's going to come under this home automation. You can see at the bottom here that we have a big purple box moving around. And that, if you stay still, is Lee Goo. And that's what they're currently doing in this Excel spreadsheet. And as you can see, we're both making changes and adding things to this same document at the same time, and it's live. And we can see what each of us is doing, what cell they're working in. And this is a really good way of getting lots of information recorded super quickly. We actually use this internally with this whole working from home. Now, when we decided we were going to send all of our staff to work remotely, we needed to gather up information as to what their setup at home was like. Did they have a desk? Did they have a separate room that they can work from? Did they need a laptop, additional monitors, or a chair to take home with them? What did they need to work from home? And we created a spreadsheet really quickly where we just put one column down one side of each individual's name and columns across the top of, do you have a desk? Do you have a laptop? Do you have extra monitors? And another column of what additional things would you need. And we shared that to everybody within our business, and we had 25 people all of a sudden straight away editing the exact same file, and we gathered that information to be able to send people home within 15 minutes. where within 15 minutes we could find out exactly what everybody needed to work from home and get everybody out of the office as quick as we possibly could. And that is really, really powerful, really, because the alternative for that is you used to send an email out and then you'd have somebody in admin who'd gather all them emails together, copy and paste stuff and build all of that, and it'd be a day's worth of work, and this was done in no time whatsoever. Okay, so over a couple of bits and pieces on SharePoint. Just move away from my notes a little bit. So one of the other things that you can do on here, I've shown you the web apps, and I quite like the web apps, but they're not fully featured. There are some functions that don't work in the web apps. Some of the things like ODBC connected workbooks, sometimes you need to have that locally on your PC. If you've got stuff like, what's it called, Power queries on there as well, they don't work so well on the web version of it. So you do have an option on here to open whatever you're working on in the desktop app. And what that'll do is it will launch that spreadsheet in the desktop version of Excel and give you, again, your familiar experience. So you can again be working on here, and if Lee was typing stuff as well, because it's all integrated and because it's all Microsoft, we can see what each other is doing on there as well. So I can see on here that Lee's got them cells selected at the moment and doing something with them, just looking at it from the desk. Okay. So you can edit documents, and again, this is saving live, and that's one of the benefits from using SharePoint over using a traditional network file storage thing. You do have this auto saving, which happens. There's also as well version history behind the scenes, so you can roll back if someone does make a major change to that, which again, we can show you if that is ever needed. Okay. And the other things that you can do from in here, which is pretty powerful, is sharing documents. So once you've got all this information in there, you do still get people saying, whereabouts is such and such a file? And you can very quickly from within SharePoint, press a button in there and share a file to whoever you choose. And this will quickly share a link to that file with that individual, and they'll get a link through their email, and that will allow them to access where that file is. And that means that you're not attaching a copy of that file to send it to them. You're actually sending them to the location where that file is. So you're not having multiple copies of the same file knocking about, and again, trying to find the latest one of them through your list of stuff in your mailbox. And what they're editing is the same document. So you're not having tons of versions and copies of the same thing knocking about, which does my head. Okay, so that's sharing that. Opening link. Okay, I'll briefly show you as well another feature in SharePoint, which is SharePoint lists. Now they're quite closely related and can be handy for different people. Now in this case, in the sales and marketing channel, we do have this product list. So what they've done here in this example is put together a list of all of their different stock items, and what this allows you to do is put together a sort of formatted group of stuff. Now it's very similar to an Excel spreadsheet, I appreciate that, but there are some different levels of functionality for this. So for example, on here, what I could do is if I wanted to add a column to this, I can say that this is a specific type of data. So I can say that stock level, which I added yesterday when I was demoing this, is a number. So if I want to put a stock level in there, I can't say that my stock level is 11 in words and has to be 11 as a number, or I can't say that my stock level is none in text and have to type 0, which is something that happens quite a bit in Excel spreadsheets, for example. Okay, so that is pretty much all I wanted to show you, I think, on SharePoint. There are a lot of things available in SharePoint that we're not going to go into. Like Mark said, originally it's an intranet site where it's a bit web developer-y, where you can make a sort of news page, or if you wanted to have a page with commonly used links available to you that people use all the time, you can do that. If you want to do that, come to us. We can have a look at doing that for you. Okay, so I think I'll hand you back on to Mark, who's going to talk about 3CX now. I think he just needs to start his microphone now.
Yeah, sorry, the joys of muting and not muting. So Andy's basically hit the nail on the head actually between SharePoint and Teams. Teams is a really easy solution to get set up on your own. We can help you, to be honest, but again, it's really easy to just get involved, start talking, booking meetings, and going through those kind of things. And we do recommend you just give it a try. Do your first meetings, do some internal meetings on it if you wish as well. We've had a few people contact us over the last week where what they've done is they've run some test meetings internally, then they're doing them externally. We've got some people using it for some quite serious meetings as well, which need to be recorded for legal reasons. And because it's fully secure and within your environment, it's a good way of doing it. SharePoint is a brilliant solution as well. It needs a little bit of thought process to set up. It's not something you can just dump some files in there from your S drive and go. But if you want to get the structure and there's lots of permissions you can set to make sure you're securing certain files in certain areas, then we can help with that. Again, not to be salesy, have a look, see if it fits you. We have already discussed this and we'll be doing more sessions specifically on these products to give you more information in more like half an hour sessions that just quick drop in ones, and SharePoint will be one of those. Lastly, just conscious of time as well. The last thing which we've seen enable people working from home much easier and allow that kind of, I'm going to pick up my PC or my laptop. We've had a lot of customers actually just take their PCs home with them, to be honest, when they've got these solutions, is a 3CX phone system. So most people require the ability to still answer their phones to keep their businesses going, but also allow flexibility on that. Now, in the good old days, a phone system will be based on a piece of metal that will be nailed to the wall or in your server rack, and all your devices internally will connect to those and go into it, basically. Your phone's what we're talking about there. These days, phone systems can exist completely in the cloud, exactly the same as what we've shown you in Teams and SharePoint, to be honest. What they do is basically get hosted somewhere, and your phones then connect over the internet to that hosted phone system and just work. And also, what must be stressed is you don't need to have a physical phone anymore. So for example, using Seriun, we've got a hosted phone system. We all went home and we didn't take our phones with us at all, our physical phones. We use something called a soft phone. And a soft phone is a piece of software that is installed on your PC. You buy a headset, like I've got one on here. Hopefully you can see this, a £15 headset from Amazon. And you make and receive phone calls through that. You can have the soft phone on your mobile as well, and that's where a hosted phone system really plays dividends. It doesn't rely on your premises. The other thing that is massively a benefit over a hosted phone system now is that the price is getting to be unbeatable. If you're not aware, BT are discontinuing the ISDN 2 or ISDN 30 packages, which are connectivity basically into businesses for their phone lines. They're being discontinued in a few years and stopped being sold in 18 months. And a hosted phone system uses online phone lines called SIP lines to basically transmit the phone calls back and forth. Those are usually a lot cheaper because there's been a race to the bottom over the last 5-6 years, and it's made a big difference in prices. Also, what we've noticed over the last few months or so is that a lot of old phone systems like Mitel or Avaya and things like that, they've got to be supported by certain small niches of companies. So, for example, we're a Samsung phone provider, and therefore we look after only Samsung phone systems or these hosted ones, which are 3CX, and that becomes a problem. They're quick to deploy. So we've just rolled out a couple of these hosted phone systems over the last week for people. You don't have to wait for anything to turn up in the post to do it. It's all done online, basically, and it makes a massive difference. You basically don't need to be in your office anymore to answer your office phone number. So if you've got an 01254 or 1282 or a national phone number, you can get that come to your mobile phone when you're out and about. Well, not at the moment because we're all socially distancing and staying at home, hopefully, but ultimately you can answer it wherever you're at and make it look like you're within the office as well. The way these things work is basically exactly like Office 365. It's priced on per user per month now. So everything comes into this kind of subscription basis where you can up and down it as you see fit. We've seen businesses who obviously furloughing staff over the last few weeks. They're changing their licensing models to suit, and the same with the phone systems. But obviously, when things come back up, they'll then bring them back up, and you get all the features that you would expect in a normal phone system. And more importantly, the day your phone system is held, we do it actually. We hold it in Microsoft Data Center, so you know where it is. It's transferable between different partners if you decide to move on from somebody like us. Not saying you would, hopefully, but that's possible as well. And you can just up and down it to suit. It works really well, and pricing can range from everything from £3 a month to £16 a month. So what you can find is that you have your entire office out there. You've got your Teams, your SharePoint, and your phone system all in the cloud. If you've got a laptop, which are quite scarce to get hold of these days, admittedly, but once they come back in stock, you can work as you wanted to before. What 3CX are also doing at the moment is basically giving you their phone software free of charge for 3 years. They're conscious of the current health crisis and they want people to be able to work from wherever they're at. So they're giving their bit of the software free. There's still some hosting and support charges around these things, but it ultimately brings down the price of a 3CX phone system, a hosted phone system, and allows you to get out of some maybe long-term contracts that are quite expensive. So it can be a win-win-win. In a future session, we'll show you 3CX live and give you a demo of it, of what it can do. But ultimately, what we wanted to tell you was there is a phone system out there that you can put in the internet and it works brilliantly. Just very lastly, because again, conscious of time, what we've covered there is quite a few things in terms of how you can work very much remotely. There is still a requirement if you have an ERP solution or Sage 50 or some kind of product that has to be on a server to have that. And we've set up a lot of VPNs for people and remote desktops. We've taken a very much a structure of VPNs are only used on work devices. If we connect a VPN up to a personal device, you can infect the network with a virus. So we've been really nervous about that. If anyone has any problems with connectivity into their network at all, still give us a shout. If you're a customer, log a ticket with us. And if you're not, we can help you in that regard. But it is worthy of note there's other ways of connecting into the network, which still keeps security in place. We've expanded out our remote control system to some of our customers over the last few weeks when they've really struggled through certain means, and we're happy to continue to do that as well. So we've answered a lot of the questions as we went along, and we'll follow up any question that we've not answered in email and phone calls afterwards. I'm just having a quick check, but I think we've answered them all as we've been trundling along.
Sorry, there was something that I did want to add really quickly as well, which is about 3CX and Teams. Now, Teams does have built into it a telephony solution as well. And I just wanted to cover why we are saying 3CX over Teams. And the main reasons are price and also functionality. So 3CX at the moment, the licensing for it is basically free. And it's a rich, fully featured product and has all the things that you'd expect, like call queues and hunt groups and all that kind of stuff, and wall boards, so you can see who is on it and who is and isn't on the phone. Teams doesn't have all of that functionality available to it, and it is a lot more expensive at the minute.
And we just had a quick question that come in actually towards the end of, can you use a physical phone in the office and a soft phone on a laptop? Absolutely. It's exactly how we're working. You put a bit of software on even on your mobile phone or on your tablet and things like that. You put the soft phone and just leave your physical phone back in the office, to be honest. It just doesn't need to move around with you at all. And again, it's just about one of these headsets, or most laptops have a microphone and camera built in that you can use, which are decent quality as well. It just allows a huge amount of flexibility in that regard. But thank you for the question as well. Okay, I think we've answered all the questions that have come up. Again, please just contact us if you've got any more questions. And we really thank you for joining today. It's been hopefully been a useful session for you, and we'll let you get back to your day. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.